What if a single broken promise could flood an entire valley? What if anger could reshape the land itself? Hidden deep in Indonesia lies a massive lake born not from nature alone, but from a legend of love, betrayal, and regret. This is the story of Lake Toba. Long ago, before maps were fully drawn and legends still lived in the breath of the wind, there was a vast land in what is now known as Indonesia. In the highlands of North Sumatra, mist rolled gently over ancient forests, and mountains stood like silent guardians of time. Rivers flowed untouched by civilization, carrying secrets older than memory itself. In this remote land lived a poor fisherman named Toba. He had no family, no wealth, and no companion but the river that provided him food. Each morning, he cast his fishing line into the cold water, hoping fate would be kind. Though his hands were rough and his clothes worn, Toba carried a quiet dignity, shaped by years of solitude and hardship. Life was never easy for Toba. Many days passed with an empty net and an empty stomach. Yet, he never cursed the river or blamed the sky. Instead, he believed that every struggle had a purpose, and every hardship was a test of patience. In his loneliness, the sound of flowing water became his closest friend. One fateful afternoon, as the sun began to sink behind the mountains, Toba felt a sudden, powerful tug on his fishing line. The water rippled violently, as if something deep below was resisting capture. With all his strength, he pulled, unaware that this moment would change his destiny forever. When the fish finally emerged from the river, Toba stood frozen in disbelief. The creature was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its scales glimmered like gold, reflecting the fading sunlight. As the wind fell silent and the forest seemed to hold its breath, Toba sensed that this was no ordinary fish, but the beginning of a legend that would reshape the land itself. Toba carried the golden fish home as night slowly wrapped the valley in darkness. The forest echoed with distant sounds of insects and flowing water, while the moon rose quietly above the mountains. Though hunger gnawed at him, his mind remained unsettled. The strange glow of the fish's scales lingered in his thoughts, as if the river itself had entrusted him with something sacred. Inside his small wooden hut, Toba prepared a fire and placed the fish on the ground. As he turned away to fetch water, an unnatural silence filled the room. When he returned, the fish was gone. In its place stood a woman of remarkable beauty, her presence calm yet powerful. Toba froze, his heart pounding, unsure whether he was witnessing a dream or a divine punishment. The woman spoke with a gentle voice, explaining that she was once a princess bound by a powerful curse. By day, she lived as a fish in the river. By night, she could regain her human form. She told Toba that fate had chosen him to break her long solitude, not by force, but by kindness. Her eyes reflected centuries of loneliness hidden behind her graceful smile. Moved by her story, Toba listened in silence. The woman offered him a new life, companionship in place of loneliness, warmth in place of endless struggle. She asked only one thing in return. Toba must never reveal her secret to anyone, no matter how heavy his anger or sorrow might become. The promise, she warned, would bind their fate forever. After a long pause, Toba agreed. In that quiet hut, beneath a flickering firelight, a vow was made that would shape the destiny of an entire land. From that night on, Toba's life was no longer his alone. What he did not yet know was that a single broken promise could awaken a force powerful enough to change the face of the earth itself. Time moved on, and life slowly changed for Toba. The lonely fisherman was no longer alone. The land around his home grew fertile, his fishing nets were never empty, and warmth filled the small hut that once echoed with silence. It felt as though the river itself was rewarding him for keeping a promise made under the glow of firelight. Not long after, a child was born. They named him Samosir. From the beginning, the boy was different, strong, healthy, and full of life. Toba felt a pride he had never known before. For the first time, he had a family, a reason to work harder, and a future to protect. But as Samosir grew older, his spirit became restless. He preferred playing to working, eating to helping. When his father sent him to the fields, Samosir would wander off, distracted by the world around him. Toba tried to be patient, reminding himself of the hardships he once endured alone. Over time, that patience began to wear thin. The struggles of daily life returned, and pressure settled heavily on Toba's shoulders. He worked from dawn to dusk, while his son seemed to carry no sense of responsibility. Each small disappointment added to a quiet frustration he refused to speak out loud. What Toba did not realize was that this frustration was slowly pushing him toward the edge of a promise he had sworn never to break. And in the silence between father and son, something ancient and powerful was already beginning to stir. One day, Toba asked Samosir to deliver food to the fields. It was a simple task, one the boy had done many times before. But along the way, hunger and temptation took over. Samosir stopped, opened the basket, and ate most of the meal himself. By the time he reached the field, very little remained. When Toba saw the empty basket, something inside him snapped. Years of exhaustion, frustration, and silence rose to the surface all at once. His voice grew sharp, his words reckless. In his anger, he forgot the promise that had once meant everything. "You're just the son of a fish," Toba shouted. The words hit harder than any blow. Samosir froze, then turned and ran home, tears streaming down his face. He told his mother what his father had said. The moment she heard those words, her expression changed. She knew instantly what had happened. With sorrow in her eyes, she realized the vow had been broken. The promise that protected their life together was gone. She told Samosir to run to the highest hill and stay there, no matter what he heard behind him. Her voice trembled, but there was no time left to explain. As Samosir ran, the sky darkened. Clouds rolled in fast, thunder cracked through the mountains, and the wind howled like a warning. The land began to shake, and rain poured down with a force the valley had never known, as if nature itself was responding to the broken promise. The rain did not stop. It fell harder and heavier, turning the river into a raging force of destruction. Water spilled over its banks, rushing through fields, forests, and villages. The ground cracked open as if the earth itself could no longer hold what was being unleashed. Toba tried to run, but the flood moved faster than any man could escape. Trees were torn from the soil, homes vanished beneath the rising water, and the sound of thunder echoed like the roar of something ancient awakening. In those final moments, Toba realized the weight of his words, and the price of breaking a sacred promise. The valley slowly disappeared beneath an endless sea of water. What was once dry land became a vast, deep lake, stretching as far as the eye could see. The storm finally calmed, leaving behind a silence heavier than the rain itself. At the center of the lake stood a single island, the hill where Samosir had climbed. Surrounded by water, it rose like a lonely monument to survival. This island would later be known as Samosir Island, standing in the heart of the lake as a reminder of what remained. And so, from grief, anger, and a broken vow, Lake Toba was born, not just as a body of water, but as a living memory carved into the land. When the storm faded and the skies cleared, the land was forever changed. Where forests and villages once stood, a vast lake now rested in silence. The water was calm, almost peaceful, as if hiding the violence that had created it. The people who later discovered this place believed the lake held a story far older than themselves. They named it Lake Toba, after the man whose life and choices shaped its existence. At its center stood Samosir Island, rising quietly from the water, a symbol of survival and consequence. To this day, locals say the wind that moves across the lake carries whispers of the past. The legend of Lake Toba is more than a story about magic or disaster. It is a reminder that words matter, promises carry weight, and anger can awaken forces beyond human control. In this legend, nature does not punish without reason, it responds. Even now, as the sun sets over Lake Toba, the water reflects the sky like a mirror of memory. And for those who listen closely, the lake still tells its story, of love, trust, and a single moment that changed everything forever. And so, the legend of Lake Toba lives on, not just in stories, but in the land itself. A place where calm waters hide a powerful reminder that words have consequences, and promises should never be taken lightly. Today, Lake Toba stands as one of the most breathtaking natural wonders in the world. Surrounded by mountains, rich culture, and ancient history, it's more than a destination. It's a place where legend and reality meet. If you ever find yourself in Indonesia, Lake Toba is a place worth visiting at least once in your lifetime. Stand by its shores, feel the wind, and remember the story beneath the surface. If you enjoyed this legend, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more legendary stories from around the world. Every place has a story, and here, we bring those legends back to life.